Magyanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Dakshanamilitam Yena Tasmi Shri Gurave Namah Namashishtam Anumapi Satriputram Matrasharupam Rupam Tasyagrajamarupurim Matharim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Gidivaram Maho Radhikamadhava Samprapto Yasha Pratitha Gripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natachmi Vanchakalpatarubhyashta kripasindubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nikhila shruti mole ratnamaladiti nirajita padapankajanta aji mukta kulairupashyamanam paritashtam harinam samshayami. Anarpita charim tirat karunayavatirna kalaham Samarpaitam Savakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipitaha Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Ajanulambita Bujjo Kanakapadatu Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Takshu Vishwambaro Duyabaro Jugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataru Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Hridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namastute He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Radhe Vrindavanadi Shri Karunamrita Vahini Kripayani Japadabja Dasyanmayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadha Lakshay Kshipta Shakamaditaram Gamadhi Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Maste Charanarvindam Brinde Maste Charanarvindam Shri Satchinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nityananda Ji Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Preman, Hari 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 Bo. So, good morning, pranam to all of you, or whatever, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be, up online. And again, thanks for your time, for your presence. And we are meeting again today and tomorrow for a few more times. And I've been thinking that I've been invited by the local devotees here to continue talking, exploring the different avenues that I've tried to present in my book on radical personalism, which is in one sense a multi-topic book, so to say. We talk about different things there around the main theme of radical personalism. So I thought that for today and the remaining lectures, we can just concentrate on some of the different radicals that come in the second part of the book, the manifesto itself. We'll talk about different radicals and explore a little bit some of those. And of course, at the end, we'll have some time for questions and answers. So the radical for this meeting that I've selected with your permission or without it, it's radical wholeness, which is one of the first ones that come in the list. There's a list of whatever, 30 something, radical this, radical that, radical guidance, radical communication, radical whatever, wholeness in this case. So we will be talking today about the idea of how to integrate holiness, to make a play of words between wholeness and holiness, how to integrate holiness with humanity. Integrating holiness and humanity, that's what I like to refer to as wholeness. So as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we want to be whole people, wholesome, complete people, not just like discombobulated or dysfunctional or amputated beings. Like on one side we speak about super transcendental things, but on another side we are incomplete as on a more basic level. So ideally, our practice is not only about being transcendental and spiritual, but not losing our humanity on our way, so to say. We don't want to reach our goal having lost all our humanity on the way, so to say. And we won't reach our goal doing that. That's my point. It's not that we will reach the pearly gates, the doors of Vaikuntha, completely inhuman, and we'll be said, sorry, you cannot enter like that. We won't reach those gates in that way. So it's very important to to integrate. If we don't integrate, we disintegrate. You have this expression, it's disintegrated, which is the opposite of it's integrated. And so integration, if you don't want disintegration, then we are for integration. And integration has a lot to do with giving everything its proper place. Everything has its proper place in Krishna consciousness. Nothing needs to be rejected in bhakti. But everything has to be accepted from the proper perspective, which in one sense can be more challenging. Sometimes it may be easier for us, like, give me a long list of what I need to reject, what I need to accept, and I do it, and that's it, I'm saved. But what if the proposal is, you don't need to reject anything, but you need to accept everything from the proper perspective? So that means, then I have to acquire the proper perspective to the point that is so proper that everything can be part of that. Wow, that's beautiful, but that may be challenging sometimes. It may be easier to say, give me a long list of things that I have to stigmatize and criticize and reject, and that's bad, and that's more black and white. That's easier. But in the beginning, we may receive a little bit like that, the do's and don'ts in bhakti. I will even just feel, okay, I'm following this, I'm doing that, I'm avoiding this. That's it, right? Right? And the wind will say, no. We are just warming up. No. So yeah, we may begin to acknowledge colors. The first two colors we may learn from the whole, how do you say in English? Spectrum is black and white. Okay, there's something called black, there's something called white. I'm a black and white person, but in time it's like, well, yeah, there is black and white, but there are shades of black. There are shades between black and white. You have like 265 varieties of gray. I want to speak of other colors, then let's talk about green. And so my point is, in the beginning of our life, we may be more black and white oriented. So tell me what to do, tell me what not to do. Tell me what's in the white list, tell me what's in the black list, and who is in the black list. Who is in the white list, who is legal, who is not legal, who I can listen from, who is bogus and bona fide. Those two words. The black list, the white list. But in time, we start to realize, as we were talking yesterday, it seems that life is multicolor. It's not black and white. There's a wider spectrum, wider nuance, wider possibility of things that can be all or many of them correct while being different. So again, we need to integrate. That's going back to my point. Bhakti is about integration. Integration. How everything that exists, just philosophically speaking, whatever exists is an energy of Krishna. And all energies are in the service of the energetic source. Technically speaking, Krishna is called Shaktimam, which means the energetic. So Shaktimam and Shakti, energy. The potent and the potency. So there is God, the potent, the energetic source, and whatever exists, whether it's matter, whether it's us, all that are different energies. Maya Shakti, Tatastha Shakti, Swarup Shakti, 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 Shakti. But all the Shaktis are connected to Shaktimam, to the center, to the energetic source, and all Shaktis exist in the service of that. So our challenge is to recognize that everything exists. If everything that exists is in connection to Krishna and is in the service of Krishna, in one sense, nothing is bad. The only bad thing is the lack of awareness, if you want to put it bad. No, the only problem is not matter. Matter is not the problem. The problem is when we misconstrue matter as what is for what is not. And we think in terms of this is bad and we have to reject and we have to renounce and we have to escape and we have to whatever. And sometimes spiritual life ends up being, as I put in my book, an evacuation plan for the afterlife. No, this is all about practicing Krishna consciousness, running away from this horrible place as soon as possible. While this world is an energy of Krishna, no? How can you call an energy of Krishna horrible? The only horrible thing may be the way we are looking at that. The dust in our own lenses. But reality ultimately is beautiful. Vishwam Purnam Sukhayate, Prabodhananda Saraswati will say. The whole universe is an abode of bliss, if you have the proper eyes to see. If you have the proper eyes to see, technically speaking, there's no need to go anywhere. It may be a little bit revolutionary if we have an orientation of, again, evacuation plan orientation. Like the goal of my practice is to leave this place. What if we make full circle and it's like the goal of my practice is not to leave this place, but to love Krishna, starting in this place. I don't need to go anywhere else to love Krishna. If I think I need to leave this place in order to love Krishna, then I will never love Krishna, because I start to love Krishna wherever I am. And that's this place, so to say. If I don't learn to love Krishna wherever I am, what guarantees that I will be loving Krishna in some other place? It's not that just by being thrown into another place, I suddenly love Krishna. No? I'm here, I cannot love Krishna because I'm here. But if I'm thrown there, I will love Krishna. It's like if I take a plane and land into Greenland, I will be a different person. No, you're still the same person. Unless you do what you need to do to be a different person, whether here or in Greenland or anywhere else. So bhakti is not about leaving this world. Of course, sometimes we find some statements in that, but the point is, what's this world actually? This world actually refers more to material consciousness. It's not so much about planet Earth, so to say. Like some time ago, someone posted something like, "There's no love in this world," and I asked, "Okay, like whom you follow?" No, the person, I follow Srila Prabhupada or whomever, I don't remember. Okay, so you agree that he had love? Yes, and he was in this world. I mean, he was on planet Earth with us, so you can say there was love in this world. And it's like, yeah, but he was in another state of consciousness. So then what you are talking about is states of consciousness. It's not about the geographical location, devoid of love or with love. It's about where are we in our awareness. That means we are in this world, if you want to call it like that, in the other world. That's why Prabhupada call it Krishna consciousness. It's state of consciousness. No, it's not so much where you are physically. He himself, as I always said, when he went from India to the West, many people were asking him, why you are leaving Vrindavan? You are 69. This is the time that most people come to Vrindavan to stay till they die. And you are leaving Vrindavan. It doesn't make sense, they say. But actually, they didn't understand that he was not leaving Vrindavan, but he was extending Vrindavan everywhere else. So, and that people who was living physically in Vrindavan, because they didn't have the proper vision to appreciate that Vrindavan is a state of consciousness, in one sense, they were not living in Vrindavan as substantially as someone like Prabhupada was, or other examples. So my point with all this again is just to not lose sight of our main theme today, bhakti is not about rejecting. Bhakti is about embracing, integrating. In bhakti, in the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur will be, everything is potential paraphernalia to be offered in the service of Krishna. He said that. Whatever you find on your way in this world is an energy of Bhagavan, and therefore it can be offered to Krishna. It should be offered. You should, that's your duty, to connect everything with that consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And that includes everything. This world, our body, our mind, psychology, emotions, humanity. So we want to be a whole person. No, we don't want to be a person with a hole. We want to be whole ourselves, complete. Yeah, we want holiness, purity, sanctity, transcendence, but without doing away with humanity. We're doing away with that thing that is so crucial for our, especially for our bhakti project, for our prospect as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So let me share a brief section from my book that I describe officially radical wholeness in that part. I have the PDF here, so I can read from here. It says, it's on page 70. Although we shared something about that yesterday, although being itself a personalist tradition, contemporary Gaudiya Vaishnavism sometimes presents the opposite in the form of various shades of disguised impersonalism. This expressed through a lack of human sensitivity and psychological balance, which includes emotional atrophy and endless types of unaddressed abuses. We need to become whole and human once again. We need to become individuated participants in our tradition. And especially and gradually, we need to become edifying elders. We call this radical wholeness. So, of course, then I try to expand on that in the chapter on individuation and even vulnerabilities. There are complete chapters trying to excavate what does it mean to be whole. But I wanted to make that point. No, we don't only want holiness, we also want wholeness. And wholeness includes holiness. An ideal holiness should include wholeness also. Ideally, we shouldn't see the two of them like, I'm talking about the two different words, but in one sense they should be, if you want, you can combine wholeness with holiness as holiness. We can make a new word, no, holiness. No, the integration of the two. Because if not, again, we may think about transcendence. We use this word many times, transcendental, transcending, transcendence. So it can be a noun, an adjective, a verb. No, in every direction we have transcendence, transcendental, transcending. But if we think about that just as leaving behind or rejecting, because sometimes we think like that, you have to transcend that. And many times we understand, okay, I have to put that aside, or I have to reject that. Instead of transcending means integrating. You don't need to reject. You need to make that part of the whole equation. Like, for example, suffering. All of us suffer in one way or another, as we said yesterday. But we don't need to reject suffering. We need to integrate suffering in the form of we need to learn to suffer. We don't need to stop suffering. We'll suffer even in Golok Vrindavan. When you love, you suffer. But that's a different type of suffering. Sri Radha suffers in separation from Krishna. She feels she's about to die. That's suffering. They suffer way more than us, in one sense. When you love, unless you love, you don't know what's suffering about, actually. Sometimes we think, oh, I suffer so much, but if we live just in a very selfish, self-centered, narcissistic life, we don't have a clue what's real suffering. When you start to love, when your heart opens and you become really sensitive, then you know what's suffering. But when you suffer in love, it's a different quality of suffering. There is a sweetness to pain. as contradictory as that may sound. Because again, for our logical system, it's like, no, it's not possible. How can be suffering in pain? Are you masochistic, Maharaj? What's going on here? No, there is suffering. There's sweet. There can be sweetness in pain. Siddhar Maharaj used to quote a poem by Shelley, a British poet. I don't recall the poem by heart, I'm sorry to say, but he basically says something like that, like our sweetest moments are tinged with a flavor of some suffering. And I give you a few examples so you don't think I'm absolutely crazy. Maybe you already think that, whatever the case. But for example, compassion is a type of suffering. When you are compassionate with someone, compassion means suffering with. Passion means suffering, means with. So if you are suffering and I become compassionate with your situation, I suffer. But it's a suffering in love, in empathy. It's a suffering that is open in my heart. So there, in that sense, we can say this: it's positive, it's necessary, it's good, it's desirable, it's sweet, or bittersweet, if you will. Still, they're sweet. Or sometimes, I don't know. You may be reading Ramayana, the story of Ramachandra. There is so much suffering there, so much tragedy, and someone is like sent to the forest, and this person dies, and this separation happens, and kidnapped cities, and whatever. And whenever something is solved, something new happens. Like, okay, finally, whatever. They are married. Ram and Sita are married, going to the forest. Okay, finally they're having relatively good time in the forest. Sita is kidnapped. Well, finally, Sita is recovered. They're back in the kingdom. Sita is exiled. I mean, Sita received a good part of the whole thing, as you can see. But of course, that's not a joy, a celebration for Ram either. No. So my point is, but at the same, and so you might be really enter into it, studying it, listening to it, and you may be reading and crying, no, because of identification with the story, the narrative. So imagine you are reading Mahabharata, Ramayana, or Mahabharata for that case. You are really into the story and suffering, crying. And I just come along and I say, like, why are you crying? Give me that book. Stop crying. And you will be like, give me that book back. I want to continue crying. And it's like, are you crazy? I said, no, you don't understand what's going on. It's a different type of crying. It's another set of tears. There are different sets of tears. So we can cry from one place, we can cry from another place. We can cry out of ignorance and frustration and selfishness. We can cry out of compassion, empathy. We can cry out of genuine emotion, ecstasy. I mean, there are so many of repentance. So many things can happen. No? So we have to be, again, very careful not to be black and white. No? Suffering is bad. This is good. There's so much nuance to everything. So I'm saying all this again, don't lose sight of the main theme, because our transcendence includes suffering. Again, it's not about reject. Transcend suffering doesn't mean reject suffering, stop all forms of suffering, but learn to suffer or learn to whatever, because nothing needs to be rejected. Last year I met, I told that a few times already. I met with Radhanath Swami in Alachua. We talked like a few hours. And at one point he mentioned, we were talking about something like that, and he told me that once one story with Prabhupada, that one devotee came to him and told him, Prabhupada, for your sake, I'm willing to reject everything. So the devotee came with this orientation of rejection. Like, for you, I reject everything, which is still a negative orientation. Instead of, for you, I'm willing to offer this positively. It's more, for you, I'm willing to reject everything. There was one good intention, of course, but Prabhupada wanted to refine the product, so to say. So Prabhupada said, the only thing you need to reject is the idea that you have to reject anything. So he used the same idea of rejection and gave the full picture. you are thinking about rejection, there's one thing that you have to reject, the idea that you have to reject anything. Because again, Krishna consciousness, he will say, is not the science of detachment. Krishna consciousness is the science of attachment to Krishna. By attaching to him, naturally, we get detached from the wrong perspective of seeing things without Krishna. That's basically the only thing we need to get detached from. Seeing things without a relationship with Krishna. That's the only thing we need to get detached from, that wrong perspective. But apart from that, no need to reject anything. So our sense of transcendence, that's my point, has to include humanity. We want a human transcendence, so to say, or a transcendental humanity, as you may like to put it. Because if we neglect this, we may neglect our humanity. And in the name of being transcendental, we end up being inhuman. And I've seen that a few times. And I'm not saying I'm free from that. But sometimes we can overemphasize a transcendence without enough emphasis on humanity, and we end up being inhuman. And we have great potential to be inhuman as humans. I mean, there's no other species with the greatest potential to be inhuman than humans. In fact, we only use that term, inhuman, in relation to people in human bodies. No? You won't say to a dog, what you did was inhuman. No? Or that bird is behaving inhumanly. No. Only humans can be inhuman. Which means we are not being what we are supposed to be, basically. We are not attending our own speech. And of course, you can tell me, okay, Maharaj, but to be human is also an upadhi. In Sanskrit, upadhi means like a false designation. It's a temporary identity. The soul is not human ontologically. The Atman is not human. Someone can say, okay, human is just a dress, a variety, a species, a form of life. So why so much emphasis on being human? If at the end of the day we are not this body, we have a human body, we are not this body. If at the end of the day we are souls, the soul is not human, the soul is not dog, animal, plant, mineral, the soul is soul, Satchit, Ananda, and so on. So why so much emphasis on being human? I'm bringing myself the Purva Paksha, the opposing argument, just to make the presentation hopefully a little bit more clear. And while we agree with that, we will say, okay, the soul is not human, but there comes the important point. In our tradition, in particular, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the ultimate goal we want to attain includes humanity. Our ultimate identity in the Lila will be human in Vrindavan, in Navadvip. So the soul is not human, and this may be a little bit more technical in terms of how Bhakti operates in the Jiva, but the soul is not human, the Jiva is not human, but when the Jiva becomes embedded with Bhakti, eventually that gives rise to a particular spiritual identity, which will be human, spiritually, purely perfected and purely human, fully human and fully divine. I mean, that's what we call in Sanskrit Nara Lila. That's the Lila of Krishna. Nara Lila means, in the words of Prabhupada, human-like pastimes. And human-like doesn't mean that, what does the like mean in that expression? Human-like. It's like, it's quasi-human. It's not human, it's human-like. It's pseudo-human. It's not, no, it doesn't mean that. Human-like means it's fully human, but it's also fully divine. Which again, it may be difficult for us to integrate the two, because we tend to think of humanity, being human means the opposite of being divine or whatever. But in the Lila, both find perfect expression. They are integrated. And the Nara Lila, actually Nara means human. Prabhupada used the word like just to remind us that although it's human, it's fully divine. For me, the like implies fully divine. Nara implies fully human, and human-like means, don't forget, it's also fully divine, but it's fully human also. Christians may speak about Christ as fully human, fully divine. We have our own version of fully human, fully divine. So our ultimate goal implies entering into a place that is fully human, fully divine, with a fully human, fully divine identity. So although the soul is not ontologically human, the Atman, in potential, in connection to bhakti, it has the potential to acquire an eternal identity that is fully human, fully divine. So that's why we are emphasizing humanity here and now. Because as bhaktas, as devotees, where we are now, we are practicing sadhana with a certain goal in mind, and our practice has to correspond in one way with the goal we want to attain. So if I want to attain an eternal realm which is fully human, fully divine, I have to be practicing now in a way that is not contradictory with that. You follow my point? If I want to be eternally fully human, I will be taking care of my humanity now. I won't be neglecting my humanity here, becoming totally dysfunctional, emotionally, psychological. By then, I will be fully human, fully divine and good law. Well, it doesn't work. So it's also very much in connection to to who we want to be in eternity, but of course acknowledging who we are here now, which may be a little bit different from our fullest potential. Still, we may be a little bit more broken and messy in our present condition, and it's okay. It's part of the journey, and we have to acknowledge that. So in that sense, also we have to be human beings. As I like to say, we don't want to be devotional superheroes. We want to be devotional human beings. No? Because sometimes we develop this superhero complex, or everything has to be like perfect and ideal, and again, over idealization, over expectation, superhero complex, and we know we all have our own struggles, but sometimes we do not talk about that because we are supposed to be perfect and ideal, and creates a superficiality that in times is difficult to sustain. So as the saying goes, we are not human beings trying to be spiritual. We are spiritual beings trying to be human. In one sense, that's more difficult. We are already spiritual beings. No, you're an Atman, you're a spiritual, but trying to be human. Trying to go through this human experience. Human is not just a body, human is an experience in a way that corresponds with the eternal humanity we want to attain. And this Nara Lila is interesting because the scriptures say, Krishna Raya Thikka Kila Sarvo Tama Nara Lila Tarabahu Janhara Sarup Gopa Besh Venukar Nava Kishor Natavar Nara Lila Hai Anurup. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami said, this Nara Lila is the highest of all Lilas. The human Lila is the highest. All externally seems the most ordinary of all to the uninformed eye. It seems like we say yesterday with the Brahma Vimohan Lila and Brahma thought like, this is ordinary. This is gross. No? This guy's eating with left hand in a picnic. This is not paka. No, they will say in India, paka. No, this is not paka. This is a mess. No, this is ordinary. That's the highest lila. So, and the highest lila includes full display of humanity. Humanity in its fullest expression. And we need to pay close attention to that lila, so we don't misconstrue and think, oh, Krishna lila is ordinary. So many times we receive that caution by our acharyas. Don't approach Vrindavan. Don't think that the Krishna lila is limited, relative, ordinary, although it may seem so at the distance. No? Like Krishna is, I don't know, stealing, lying, crying, afraid from Yashoda. He's tied to a mortar. He's a playboy. It's like shocking. If you don't have proper philosophical education, you will think that's That's not transcendental. That's ordinary. That's whatever. That's degrading even. There's people who say, I love Krishna, but only the Krishna of the Bhagavad Gita. The Krishna, the Upanishadic Krishna who speaks to Arjuna as a guru. But don't talk me about that Krishna in Vrindavan. That's another thing altogether. But one thing takes to another. If you study Bhagavad Gita properly, that takes you to Vrindavan. So my point is, this Nara Lila, that is our goal, includes holiness, transcendence, but includes humanity. So it's a whole Lila. It's a Lila of wholeness. And if you want to attain such a place, we need to be whole in our present situation as sadhakas, as humans. We are not in the Lila yet, so we cannot live our life as if we are a gopi, a gopa, and because it's imitation. So we have to be authentic and realistic where I am today as a human sadhaka. Which are the needs, which are the situations I'm going through, and how to integrate them. Again, which emotions I'm feeling in my particular stage. I shouldn't stigmatize those emotions, for example. It's not like, I'm having this emotion, but this is not the highest. I know I should be feeling ecstasy, but I am feeling something else. So this is bad. I have to reject this. And you develop a complete negative orientation toward all that you're feeling because it's not still the highest thing. But do you think that by that method you will reach the highest thing? That won't happen. You will reach the madhouse, probably. No. So humanity in our particular situation includes imperfection, limitation, frailty, and we need to embrace those things. We don't need to shun those things, to reject those things. We have to. There is even a form of that in the Lila. There is a form of limitation in the Lila. It's unlimited, but externally Krishna's tied. Again, he's limited. That adds charm in the Lila. That adds to the loving interaction. But still, there remains some form of vulnerability. There is so much vulnerability in the Lila, as I try to explain in my book. Vulnerability is part of the human condition, and that's not something bad. Krishna is vulnerable to the love of his devotees. He's so affected by that. He will be, as I say, he will be seen crying in separation from Sri Radha in the topmost vulnerable situation, affected by the arrows of Cupid, so to say. He will be he's defeated in so many ways. He's tied by his mother. He's defeated in wrestling by his friends. He's completely affected by the arrows of Cupid in his romantic affairs with the gopis. So he's vulnerable in every sense of the word. There's nothing wrong about that word, just in case. Vulnerability. So if we want to go to a place which is fully human, means fully vulnerable, we have to allow ourselves to be fully vulnerable in our particular situation. And we have to acknowledge all the different departments of our human experience and try to integrate them, to balance them, as we talked yesterday in our unofficial third class, so to say. It's the longest one. We were like 3 hours, or I don't know how long. We were talking about that, about the importance of being a balanced human being. To acquire sattva as the ideal platform to go to transcendence. But first you have to reach the airport before going to the plane. So sattva means you have to be a balanced person. Integrate your present situation. Be honest about what you are going through. If you have any emotion, you can acknowledge those. If you have any situation in your relationship, try to heal that. First, we have to have healthy relationships. We have to have learn to communicate, to speak with one another. That sounds very basic, but I will say first we need that foundation: healthy communication, healthy listening, learning to listen, learning to accept each other unconditionally. All this is part of being a proper human being. Sensitive. Human ideally means sensitive. That's when you say sometimes like, if I tell you a little bit like, please be more human. What I'm implying with that, What do you understand by that? No, please, more human, more compassionate, more sensitive, more. So in one sense, that means to be human. Be more that. So first, we need to have a very grounded foundation in all the things, and then we can sit and talk about seriously about the depths of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, in the sense that Gaudiya Vaishnavism is such a deep ocean, and we can be talking about so many things in so many levels. There are so many levels of conversations we can have, but also we need to be able to go deep into the basics also before trying to talk superficially about higher topics. At least that's my stance. I don't like to rush into the higher realms superficially, touching those things superficially. First, let's go deep into the basics, as deep as we can. Be properly grounded in that, rooted in that, radical root. And that rootness, that like grounding gives the proper foundation for whatever comes up. The trees grows higher, but also grows in terms of root. So we want to reach the peaks, so to say, of Krishna consciousness, but the rooting process has to be also correspondingly happening. As I say, many times the roots are even longer than the branches, you can see. So so that's an important point. We have to be, Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say, fools rush where angels fear to tread. That's a famous line he will invoke. So fools rush where angels fear to tread, like implying sometimes we want to, another word to translate that in Sanskrit is sahaja. And not to condemn anyone, like, or label you are sahaja. I mean, who is free from having the tendency on one level or another? So sometimes it's a form of, how we say in English, escapism. And instead of confronting your actual chapter in life, I want to go somewhere else. Whether it is higher or sometimes it may be even lower. Sometimes we may be ready for something higher, but we insist on remaining in a lower chapter, in kindergarten. Like you are ready to leave the pacifier, but you got addicted to that and you don't want to enter into the new stage of life, which is without pacifier. So that's a form of sahaja, in the sense of you are avoiding responsibility of acknowledging where you should be at present. So you have these two varieties of sahaja. I want to go to a higher place than where I am, or I want to remain in a lower place than where I should be. In both cases, escapism. I don't want to confront reality as it is where I am in the present moment. So, because Krishna Lila, Golok Vrindavan, Nitya Navadvip, all these things are beautiful where we want to go. But in order to reach where we want to go, we have to equally clearly establish where we are at present. Like you have this GPS system, so you have to put where you want to go, or you have to put where you are. It's not enough where you want to go. Or like if you go to, I don't know, to a shopping mall or something, and you want to reach a particular shop, number 330, and it's a map there, shop 330, but you need a second point of reference, which is you are here. Because if not, it's like how to reach there. I don't know where I am. And if it only says you are here, but you don't have a clue where to go, it's equally overwhelming. So you need these two points of reference, where you want to go, where you are, and then you can thread the established, okay, from here to here, this is the path. So both are equally important. We have to have a proper integration of the two things. Okay, we receive from Shastra this very beautiful and inspiring description of what's the world of love we want to enter. But also we receive the method, how to reach there. But also we need to understand who we are. where we are now. And that requires lots of sincerity and introspection. Where I am now. It's not enough to say, I am in planet Earth in a human form of life. That's where I am. Okay, that's good. First attempt. Let's go for a second, more specific, and so on and so forth. No. So, and that's mentioned everywhere in the scriptures. No? You have to first, like Krishna, as we were mentioning yesterday in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, he will emphasize, try to be a balanced human being in terms of vocation. Try to engage according to your acquired nature. Don't be dysfunctional on a social level. Or the very 10th canto, on the very 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You have the description of Krishna Lila, but you have so many other things being described before reaching that point, that include how to be a balanced person in society, descriptions of Varna Ashram or being in sattva, basically, as a human being. Or even the Vedanta Sutra, which again, the Bhagavatam is a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra starts saying, Atato Brahma Jijnasa. Now is the moment to inquire into the goal of, into Brahman, into the absolute. And Atato means now. So different commentators have said, okay, now means now that you have a human form of life, but also some other commentators add to that, now that you have studied other scriptures which deal with how to be balanced in this world. You have in Sanskrit the Purva Mimamsa, and then you have the Uttar Mimamsa. So Purva Mimamsa is a generic term to refer to scriptures which deal more with you in this world, dealing with your acquired nature, and Uttar Mimamsa is the soul, the absolute transcendence. So Atato Brahma Jijnasa also can mean, now that you have gone through all those texts that teach you how to be a balanced human being, okay, now let's talk about transcendence. Like trying to make clear this point of first having these things in place. So again, to be whole as Gaudiya Vaishnavas implies acknowledging our humanity, embracing it, integrating that in the context of Krishna consciousness. Humanity doesn't need to be rejected, but needs to be integrated to the point that it expresses itself in the lila, as you say, Nara lila. Humanity is there. So beginning from where we are now, for example, as I said before, with our emotions, we have emotions. We don't need to reject our emotions. We don't need to sit on our emotions. We need to sit with our emotions. There's one quote from Prabhupada. Let me share it, that I share in my book. In this connection, it's very interesting. He says as follows. It's in connection to Dhruva Maharaj becoming angry in one section of the Bhagavatam. And which page? Yeah, here it is. Prabhupada says, depending on our level of spiritual advancement or consciousness, we can control emotions, but we should not deny them. Anger will continue even in the liberated stage. And then he gives the example of Dhruva Maharaj. And he says, Dhruva Maharaj is becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and so on, was not incompatible with his position as a great devotee. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry. Of course, this is not a license to be angry all day. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry or overwhelmed by other emotions. That's Prabhupada. That's not me. I'm just sharing these points, so we know that okay, there is a place for these things. No? We are being given permission to again sit with our emotions, not deny them, allow them, acknowledge them, and try to integrate them, of course, in a proper place. Because you can be angry, and as Prabhupada is saying, anger is not necessarily a bad thing. Even it's one of the 7 secondary rasas in the lila that Rupa Goswami described, Rodra Rasa. So you will be angry in eternity. Of course, it's an anger in the context of the lila. It's not the same anger that we may experience as conditioned souls, but there is a place for that, for some expression of that. So I can be angry now, and the problem is not so much the anger. The problem is, what do I do with the anger? Now, if I become resentful and bitter and end up hating everyone, okay, that was not the idea. But if anger comes and I acknowledge that and I recognize, okay, this anger comes as a symptom of a necessity that I have that I was not able to fulfill. So the anger comes as a frustration. The frustration is telling me that I feel that I need something that is not being fulfilled. So that invites me to be introspective, like, what's that need that I have? Do I need actually to fulfill that need? Or maybe I do not need to fulfill, I need whatever. You go into a journey of swadhyaya, or self-study, so to say. And all that self-study took you to certain good conclusions, but it all began with anger. So in that case, you use anger in a proper way that took you to introspection instead of, again, hate, resentfulness, and so on and so forth. So it's important that we understand emotions do not need to be stigmatized or denied or condemned, like, and the same extends to everything else. No, our emotional body, physical body, psychological body. We need to develop some wholesome, healthy connection with that. Everything you ultimately want is Krishna's energy. Don't forget, even your body is an energy of Krishna. So we are expected to honor everything as energy of Krishna, including our body. And we have to be balanced, and how to say this, one last point that I'd like to mention, maybe, which is that I personally, in my opinion, and of course it's not only my opinion, in many sections of our Gaudiya community, there is a lot of emphasis in renunciation, like something higher than not being a renounced person. And I don't agree with that. No, I don't think that's a teaching. Our teaching is not about becoming a renunciant, a sannyasi, and I'm a sannyasi in good standing. So I'm not saying this to justify any mess I may be doing. But the goal of Krishna consciousness is not to become a sannyasi. The goal of Krishna consciousness is to become a pure devotee, develop love for Krishna. If you study the 64 angas or limbs of bhakti that Rupa Goswami described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, you won't find at any place sannyas, brahmacharya, monastic. I'm not against that. I'm just saying that's not the goal. I'm not saying that's necessarily higher. It's not that if I have this color, I'm higher than all of you who had the other color, so to say. Now, you can attain the goal of life from family life as well. That's in the Bhagavatam. That's in the very conclusion. For example, on the chapter on Grihastha Ashram in the 7th canto, Bhagavatam says you can attain perfection from the Grihastha Ashram. Every ashram is an ashram. Ashram means a shelter. It's supposed to be a shelter. No? Of course, Bhagavatam will speak about the dark well of family life, but that's not about Grihastha Ashram. That has to do with Grihamedi. No? And you can have the dark well of family life, and you can have the dark well of monastic life. You can adopt a life as a monk, as evasiveness, as escapism, as not wanting to take responsibility, and just like, okay, I'm a monk and I don't have to work and I'll have chapati, rice and dal every day. And people will give me probably donations because they seem to like this color, this attracts money, it seems, but whatever the case. No, so we can have our own version of dark well in each particular ashram. It's not just the grihasthas had that problem, so to say. And as I like to say, in eternity, in our tradition, we won't be renunciants. No? If I want to serve Krishna in Golok Vrindavan as a gopi or as a gopa, nobody will be a sannyasi in Golok Vrindavan. So you follow my point? So in eternity, even if I'm a sannyasi temporarily here, better I don't get too much attached to this, because in eternity I will have to drop off my sannyas clothes to accept a higher sense of identity. No? So I'm not against that, but of course I am happy being a sannyas is my nature. I'm okay with that. But the point is, we have to be careful not to overemphasize renunciation and make a movement renunciation centered. Renunciation is not fostering bhakti. In that case, bhakti fosters a certain renunciation, vairagya. Not renunciation in terms of an order, but just detachment from the needs we need to be detached. That's what the Bhagavatam say. Vasudev Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayoita Janayati Asuvairagyam Janam Tayadahaitakam. By practicing bhakti, vairagya comes. It's not by practicing vairagya, bhakti comes. That's not correct. Because I've seen sometimes devotees thinking, okay, I will be more and more renounced and stop eating and breathing and sleeping and being more and more austere. So I will be more of a devotee. And it's the other way around. No? Try to increase your bhakti, your devotion, your love, your dedication. And proper detachment will come from whatever you need to be detached. And probably you need to be detached from the idea that renunciation fosters bhakti. That goes against the very definition of bhakti. Rupa Goswami says, Anyavilasita shunyam gyan karma adi anavritam. Anukulena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama. Uttam bhakti, the bhakti we want to pursue, is not covered by gyan. It's not covered by this idea of, if I become more, or by vairagya, no? If I become more renounced, if I do more tapasya, Krishna will love me more, or something like that. I will please Krishna with less eating and less sleep. No. If that comes, it will come like a natural byproduct of your bhakti. It's not that Raghunath Das Goswami, for example, who was quite austere, but he was not like consciously, okay, I have to eat less and less. No. He was just so absorbed in his bhakti that he forgot to eat. That's how it works. It's not like, okay, tomorrow I will fast. It's not like that. No. From now on, I will sleep less. And it was not a plan he had. It was just his absorption in bhakti became so deep that sleeping or eating just disappeared from his map. So we have, as we were yesterday quoting this famous line, like smartavya satatam vishnur bismartavya najatu chit sarvi vidhi visedasur nisedasur tayore bakinkara. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All rules and regulations must serve that principle. So my point with this is, if I try to become more austere, and by that I become more and more like disturbed and think less and less of Krishna, what's the purpose of that? Well, I will tell you something that may sound like heresy for some, but I don't know. For example, a day like Krishna Janmashtami. Krishna Janmashtami is not about fasting till midnight. You follow? That's not the essence of Janmashtami. With this, I'm not canceling the fasting. I'm just saying that's not the essence of the celebration. The essence is absorb yourself in Krishna. And now if someone tells me, Maharaj, I'm so disturbed by the fasting. It's 3 p.m. Still, I have 9 hours to go. To be honest, I'm not thinking about Krishna. I'm just thinking about the 108 preparations that they are preparing. I'm disturbed. Probably I will tell to that person, go and eat something and think about Krishna. Because what's the goal of reaching midnight? I didn't eat anything, and I'm like completely. But what you were thinking about during the whole day? Oh, just about breaking my fast. So that was not the purpose. Or sometimes in our tradition we have nirjal. They both do ekadasi without even water. Someone once asked Srila Bhakti Rakshakti Dev Goswami, like, what's the essence of ekadasi or nirjal? I say, like, you absorb so much in bhakti that you forgot to eat. That's the idea. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to do it like that, but the principle is not so much, okay, today I cannot eat pizza. No, because it's Ekadasi. No? Sometimes it's funny because the devotees say, okay, today we cannot eat this, so we have to make up for that and end up eating way more fancy than any other day of the month to counteract the austerity. But Ekadasi basically means the day to increase my dedication and love for Krishna. It's not about not doing something. So we have to be careful not to develop this like negative orientation to bhakti. Like sometimes I joke with the devotees, but I tell when they are asked about the famous 4 regulative principles, and for some devotees that's what's bhakti is about. So if someone asks them, so what do you do as a devotee? And the reply would be, I don't eat meat, I don't take intoxicants, I don't, and so on and so forth. So I am asking you, what do you do? And you are replying, what you are not doing. So what is your life about? I do not do this, I do not do this. And so you are replying me in a negative way, about not doing, instead of what you do positively. So we have to be careful not to to craft a whole practice or conceive of our practice in terms of rejection, in terms of negative answers, instead of avoiding things, but how we can offer ourselves in the most loving and positive way for the pleasure of Krishna and the Vaishnavas, right? So anyhow, those were some words in connection to the topic I want to share today: radical wholeness. How we can be more whole, how we can integrate and embrace humanity, body, mind, emotions, everything in a higher synthesis, in a higher equation as part of bhakti, because bhakti is not about rejecting, bhakti is not about mukti, about leaving this world, and about condemning anything, but about approaching everything with the proper perspective, proper knowledge, proper sambandha, proper relationship. Because if we do not do that, we may end up in various shades of impersonalism. No, this is false. Neti. Not this, not that. This is Maya. This is false. There's this famous lecture by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called From Anartha Nibriti to Artha Pravriti. And he says, if we become too much obsessed with the idea of neti, like this is wrong, this is bad, this is Maya, and just that's our only orientation, rejecting what is false, say you may end up in Brahman. Because that's the method of the Jnanis. No? Everything is Maya except Brahman. No? So neti, no, Brahman. Oops, I didn't want to come here. So it's a way of making that point. He said that. Now, if we as devotees just limit our practice to neti, to what's not, what's bad, what's illusion, without adding a positive content, we may end up somewhere else, so to say. So that he said, from anartha nibriti to artha pravriti. Anartha nibriti is get rid of the undesirable stuff, let's put it like that. But artha pravriti means acquire the real stuff, positively acquire. Not only it's about rejecting what the undesirable stuff, but acquiring the desirable thing. So we have also to have that side in place, basically. So anyhow, some thoughts that came today in connection to this one radical of the different radicals of my book on radical personalism, radical wholeness. Maybe later today we will go explore some of the other ones. But if you have any questions, something, we can have some time for that as well. Trivikram Prabhu, yeah.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Just that last point, because it's fresh in my mind. There's a lot of points I could talk on, but I'm just trying to remember all those points. But this last one, in that pursuit of what's desirable, sometimes we can tend to be just avoiding our humanity, because we've got this idea that humanity means the material conditioned state. So avoid that humanity, and so therefore in order to get the higher taste, we're focusing on our sadhana and our, hearing Krishna Lila and so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we've still got material desires and a material body and a human psychology, and we can tend to, we're so-called pursuing the positive. Is that a legitimate way to overcome the negative? Just to focus on Krishna, or this quest for wholeness should it encompass some degree of balance where we actually are dealing with where we're at on the GPS
Mm-hmm.
and how to move from that place specifically rather than, okay, yeah, Krishna Lila's there obviously, and we know that's the goal. It's some way off in the distance. So is there
What do you think will be my answer to your question after my class?
No, yeah, we have to be real.
Of course, Krishna can bestow perfection on whomever he wants, whimsically, so to say. He can break all rules in that sense, but there is a certain way of doing things that is more the rule rather than the exception to the rule. So we shouldn't practice our spiritual life like hoping to be the exception to the rule, so to say. Now, like, okay, I won't work on my humanity. I will just read Krishna Lila forever and remain dysfunctional in everything else. But Krishna can do miracles, so he wants, he will do it. Like I said the other day, it's like I won't work because someday I may win the lottery and I may become billionaire. So why work? Probably you will never win. So better you find some work. So in the same way, because also the point is, if you say, okay, I'll limit myself to only hear Krishna Lila and to jump to the most esoteric sections and the more detailed descriptions of Krishna's erotic pastimes with the gopis. Let's go to the most confidential thing. And that's the highest, so I'll go there. But of course, the first question is, who say that you are ready for the highest? No, I mean, you have to have adhikar, you have to have qualification to understand that. And with this, I'm not saying, I'm not of the extreme of you cannot, I don't know, read 10th canto yet, that's too much. If you have proper faith, that's what the Bhagavatam is saying at the end of the Rasa Lila. Vikriditam brajabadu biradam idam cha Vishnu sradam bitanu srinuyata tavarnayat. So if you have shraddha, if you have proper faith in this narration, the power of these narrations, the Bhagavatam is saying, Hridrogam also pahinotya chirena dhira. The Bhagavatam says, if I hear in Rasa Lila, you get rid of lust. If you hear it with faith from the proper source. That's one reason also why Srila Prabhupada also published Krishna book before the whole Bhagavatam. And Krishna book is 10th canto directly. And someone may criticize that. Like, but first we have to go through the first 9. He himself said that. But at the same time, he wanted to make this presentation. Of course, he didn't know if he was going to leave enough. He said those things. But he wants to make this emphasis. This is so powerful. This hearing Krishna Lila is so powerful with proper faith, with proper guidance. But that doesn't mean, if that works for you or for anyone and you feel I'm balanced, I'm getting purified, everything is fine, I have no objection. But if you see, I'm love Krishna Lila, but my relationships are a mess around me and I don't know how to relate to my other devotees and having so many conflicts, probably you should do something else apart from only listening to Krishna. Because also if our humanity is not fully balanced, who knows how we are understanding Krishna Lila? With our dysfunctional humanity, you read the Lila, which is showing the perfection of humanity. But if you are not in your perfection of your humanity, how you are understanding that humanity that is expressed in the Lila? Probably you are filtering your own dysfunctionalities onto the Lila, and you are misreading everything. And we know that our acharyas many times are preventing us, like, be careful of reading Krishna Lila as something ordinary, mundane, or just projecting your own unresolved childhood trauma in some cases. So that's also a point for me. Even if someone tells me I'm only reading Krishna Lila, and I'm fine with that. Okay, I want to see the fruit of that. I want to see how the life of that person, to see if that's actually true. Because you can tell me anything. You can say, Maharaj, I'm just reading 10th Canto, Rasa Lila, nothing else, and I'm perfect. Let me see. Let's live together for a week, and let's coexist with one another, and let's see how actually that's the case. Or if that's the case, great, I will put you a garland on you. But if that's not the case, I will also put you a garland, but invite you to work on another things as well. Because the Bhagavatam itself, again, before reaching Krishna Lila, is speaking on so many other topics, like making it clear these things have to be in place as a preliminary foundation before you attempt to just like immerse yourself in the Lila fully, because we have some scars, we have impressions that we acquired from the past, and that creates certain ways of thinking about things, and that can get in the way of understanding the Lila properly. So that would be my answer. Extended answer. The whole class was also an answer to that. So yeah. Of course, with this, I'm not saying do not read Krishna Lila until and unless you are a completely perfect, integrated, balanced human being. I'm not saying that either, because we may never be that on that level. But at least some considerable degree of human balance is required. But as I said before, we can listen to Lila, we can have this clear education on, okay, this is the goal I want to attain, this is the ideal, where I want to go, but where I am. Again, these 2 points of the journey, where I want to be, where I am at present. The two things can be simultaneously coming to us. We're here in the Lila, we are being informed about the nature of the goal, but also we are being informed and educated about the nature of my present situation. So I can approach that goal in a realistic way, not in my own science fiction idea. I'm almost about to be a gopi next weekend or something. And probably we need therapy for a few years first. we never know. Thank you. Just not to lose sight of. I hope it's clear. Doesn't make any sense.
I was just thinking, Maharaj, that's a really pivotal point that you've just made there, because we always have this kind of like quandary, like, okay, well, the purifying process of Krishna consciousness, of bhakti, of chanting the holy name, Srimad Bhagavatam, and worshipping the deities, japa, and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, then we have some faith in that is going to purify us, right? So we can think, oh, okay, well, if I do those things, because we may not have such a high estimation of ourselves for being devotees, but we think, oh, if we do those things, then they are so potent that they're going to kind of like cast a magic spell over me, and they're going to make me, because they're so potent. But I think, like you're just saying that, but what's going to happen then is if we don't have the wholeness and the humanity is not there, then what is our perception of Krishna going to be? So in one sense, it seems like it's a bit of a struggle when you think, oh, do I have to really address that issue in myself? Why does that issue keep coming up? Why can't I just kind of it's like if you're making some sort of potion, it's like, oh, if I put in a bit more of the goodness, won't that overcome that? And but actually practically we do see that you almost feel like you just you always fall flat. It's like, why does it come up again? This was so amazing, I had this experience and I practiced Krishna consciousness for so many years. But I think thank you for that point. I think that that was very clear, that then your perception of Krishna, and so then sometimes you might feel, well, Krishna, why do you do this? Why do you kind of like, sometimes you're here and then sometimes you're so far away, and then I just feel like I've just, it's so new. But actually, when you're talking about that, you realize actually that's his kindness, because like if you want to have a really dynamic, loving relationship like we've been talking about, then you've got to know the person in truth, isn't it? So even though that's painful, and then it's quite interesting, because Turkam was reading something the other day, and the devotee was saying, what was it? That
finding Strength, what was it?
Strengthen your weaknesses, basically. So then your weakness can be your strength. So therefore, if something, your weakness can be your strength, because if you take Shad Krishna, but sometimes, our weaknesses and our kind of disappointment can not lead to strength. It can lead to a sense of projecting upon Krishna that, he's kind of coming and going. He's not there. He's not your constant, but actually he's the only constant in our lives. But it's like, oh God, he's coming, he's coming. So yeah,
we are the ones coming and going.
Yeah.
We are the unstable ones. He's not. He's there.
Yeah.
He's there. He's willing to be there. He's getting closer than ever. But and regarding what you mentioned, many interesting points. But one, for example, you mentioned about these different practices we embrace as our main expressions of bhakti, and all of those practices are totally powerful and can bestow perfection in one moment. Now you have all these famous verses, I don't know, sadhu sangha sarva shastra koi, lava matra, sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hai, all perfection, sarva siddhi, lava matra, it can be attained in 1 nanosecond of sadhu sangha. And you are like, well, I have had sadhu sangha for the last 35 years, and Sarva Siddhi is not here yet. It doesn't mean that Sadhu Sangha was a hoax. It means that still I'm not able to fully take advantage of that. The same with the name. We have so many verses in Shastra, just by reciting half a syllable of Krishna's name, everything comes. And it's like, okay, is that arthavat? Is there an exaggeration? Because there are sections in scripture which are considered, for some purpose, something is exaggerated. But one of the 10 offenses to the name is never think about that when the Shastra is glorifying the name. So again, half a syllable, all perfection. I've been chanting for decades and hours, and not to go neurotic also with yourself, but just to remind yourself. It's not that the practices are a hoax. It's just that I need to become more and more present and purified and qualified to take advantage of the power of those practices. And sometimes part of that is I need to be more balanced in my humanity, because sometimes unresolved issues get in the way. Get in the way of my sadhu sangha, of my relationship with another devotee. If I have some unresolved relational issue, I may not be able to fully extract all the potential blessings that can come from relating with another Vaishnava, because I have some trauma in terms of relationships, and that gets in the way. You follow? So in that sense, it's not that bhakti is lacking, but we may need to fill the container, so to say. Sometimes Gaur Govinda Maharaj gave that example. Like Krishna is giving the mercy, and our heart is kind of a container. But sometimes our container is cracked and has holes. So the mercy comes, or whatever helps count, but we are not able to fully retain that. It goes away, because we have to heal the container, fill the broken pieces, if you want to use some analogy, so to say. So yeah, in that sense, I'm emphasizing what I'm emphasizing: have a balanced humanity, psychological balance. That's not in and unto them that itself. It's just that will in service of bhakti, in service of our ideal. And yes, weakness can be our strength. Failure can be the pillar of our success, as they say. Because as I like to say, our devotional journey many times, how to say, expresses itself in many ways, but let's put it two. One, we will have these moments of inspiring hope. Now that we're having some experiences and we are inspired and so much hope, and everything is like, jai. This is it. This is why I join. This is why I stay, whatever. And some other moments, we will have moments of what I will call, instead of inspiring hope, humbling failure. And it's okay. It's humbling. We are failing, we are falling short of ourselves, we're feeling some lack, but it's humbling. So we need to be humbled. We need to be humble, and we need to be humbled. So it's an humbling failure. So if it's a failure that brings me to being humbled, how much is a failure? We call it a failure. Like Mahaprabhu in the second verse of Sikshastakam. That's a very nice example that I always like to quote. Amnamakari Bahuda, etc. First 3 lines of that verse, 4 lines has. First 3 lines, Mahaprabhu is saying, oh my Lord, you have so many names. In all these names, all your potencies are there. There are no hard and fast rules to chant your names. Such is your mercy. So he shows gratitude and appreciation, something very positive. And then comes the last line. But Durdaiva midrishami hajjaninanurag. My misfortune is such that I have no taste for this. So humbling failure. But he begins with 3 lines of appreciation and gratitude. The positive thing. Wow, the gift is such incredible, but I'm not yet up to the occasion, so to say. So, repentance. No neurosis, not guilt trip, but healthy repentance. Acknowledgement. I have still no taste or not that great taste. And that takes me to a place of humility. I feel I'm failing, but it takes me to a sincere prayer for more mercy. So ultimately, that's success. That's not failure. So yeah, in one sense, those moments of weakness, those moments of acknowledging our limitations can be empowering, should be empowering. No, if not, what? We will get depressed, we will get self-centered. Oh, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm bad and unworthy, and you bring the whip, and we start a festival of whipping. And my ego remains in the center. I am so bad, I am so low, I am it's that another way of saying I am the best, I am the worst. Like this disciple once came, you know that story maybe, still to Srila Prabhupada, say, Prabhupada, I am the most falling of all your disciples. And Prabhupada say, you are not the most anything. Because he felt you want to be the most something. If you're going to be the most advanced, at least you want the credit of being the most falling. We are not don't try to be the most something. So, but yeah, there's great potential in failing. Like Richard Rohr, my Franciscan friend, he says, many times we advance more by doing it wrong than by doing it right. We grow more by doing it wrong than by doing it right. It's like, yeah, that's a very wise piece of advice. It's not okay, so I will do it wrong on purpose so I grow more. That's not the point. But many times we do it right and we become arrogant. I do it right. I'm perfect. I have no mistake. I don't need to change. I'm good. I'm not humbled. I'm like, I did it right. Nobody can say me anything. You do it wrong, you're humbled. If you are sincere, you acknowledge that and you grow. So we shouldn't we shouldn't cancel that avenue, of growing by weakness, growing by limitation, growing by doing it wrong. We shouldn't stigmatize that, because sometimes we can enter into that thing that stigmatizing failure. And as I put in my book, we should normalize failure, because we will fail. I mean, it's part of life. We will fail. So instead of being stigmatized every time I fail, I will normalize, in the sense I know that will happen. It's not that I want that to happen, but it will happen. I know it will happen. So I will welcome that when it happens and try to learn from that, instead of just crucifying myself for failing again. In one sense, you can describe progress as failing in a higher and higher way. Committing deeper and deeper mistakes. Still, you are making mistakes, but you are being more and more refined, so to say. Your mistakes now are not as gross as they were 20 years ago, but still you're making mistakes. But you are growing. That's one way. I'm growing because my mistakes are not as gross as before. That's a way of putting it, so to say, right? So, and as I say, at the end of the day, we have to remember Krishna loves us unconditionally, which means despite our mistakes, despite in our weakness, we are loved by him. That's important. Because if not, when you confront your weakness, that becomes like a source of hopelessness. I'm so weak, I'm so limited, I'm so imperfect. What to do with this mess? No hope. But if I remind myself, Krishna loves me in all my weakness, he already unconditionally has accepted me. That's a source of hope and empowerment when I'm confronted with that weakness, with that limitation. I'm humbled by that, but also I have hope that I can do it. I can make it. I'm not hopeless and useless and unworthy in every sense of the term, so to say, right? On the contrary. Yeah, thanks for your words. Yeah. Anything else before we conclude?
So Maharaj, so radical wholeness means that we are facing, part of being whole is having any shortcomings and frailties and mistakes and failures. So it seems like it's quite natural to be dysfunctional in that sense. You know, that if we try to be whole in a perfect way, then that's idealistic, or it's not realistic.
Yeah. I never say to be whole in a perfect way.
No.
Just say to be whole.
Yes.
and you can always become more whole. Also, we don't have to put this idea in our mind like to become whole means reach that one point of perfection where nothing else can be attained. But it's more like an ongoing process. Today I try to be wholer than yesterday, and a little bit more and a little bit more, and forever, so to say, integrating. So yeah, of course I'm not trying, in one sense I'm not saying normalize this functionality, but don't be so surprised when that comes, because that's there probably on some level, and we can, I would say, we can only work with that in a healthy way if we really normalize that. Most probably we have something of that, like we are more accepting that not in a neurotic way, because if we are too nervous about that, we may not be able to even look at that and work on that. So we have to be humble to realize, I mean, as souls traveling, we are not in Golok Vrindavan, just in case. So there are a few things that we may need to work out. Like once one devotee was complaining to his guru, like Gurudev, the guru was visiting for 1 week, classical scenario, and the devotee is complaining, like, in our community there are this situation, this devotee is doing this, and this is telling that, and we have this conflict, this problem, and kind of expecting Gurudev give the magical touch, and and the guru replied, like, the only perfect community is in Golok Vrindavan. That was the end of the conversation. Like trying to say, that will happen as part of, I'm not saying just allow that to happen worse and worse, but just also don't be so surprised, because we are here working on our humanity and trying to navigate, also to add compassion to that, so we can also be more compassionate with each other and understanding, and not be so shocked, like, oh, that's dysfunctional, oh, that's an unintegrated humanity over there. That's everywhere. So relax, in one sense. Not relax in sense of evasiveness and laziness, but have more acceptance that that's the norm. And on that foundation, let's work on that as best as we can. And be sincere and trust that, of course, Krishna is looking at that and blessing that. He will make up for the things that we cannot do ourselves, so to say, fully. So also, we do not have to get into neurotic, like it all depends on my own effort and it all depends on my own. I mean, we have to work on ourselves and be introspective and do some, but there are so many things that escape our control and capacity and awareness. But if at least we are being honest and sincere and trying to do the best we can, also we have to have deep trust. Krishna will fill in all the remaining gaps, so to say. No? He knows how to do that. He can, but he also wants to see our part. No, it's not just, okay, Krishna, you can do everything, so please do everything. So I have to do nothing. No. As they say in the Bible, God helps those who help themselves. No? So we have to do our part, and he will do his part. He's already doing his part. And we have to trust that he's doing his part. Because sometimes we forget that. And we try to do his part ourselves, and that becomes impossible. So we have to also know Krishna is doing his part. I have to trust that, and I have to do my part. Everything in place and move forward. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, for your presence, for your attention. And I think we met again today in the evening.
What time? 6 o'clock we said, right?
Yeah, do you want to do it down at our place?
That's up to you. Up to
Yeah,
you.
we're happy.
Anyhow, 6 o'clock, whatever,
Yeah.
we will organize, but approx this our time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do
Okay.
that. Yeah, sit around will be happening. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. There won't be many of us marriage, but
We are not here after
no,
a number. We are after their mercy. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sadhu Sangha ki jai, Gaur Premananda Haribo, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Hari Haribo.